It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
One, two, three, four.
Let's go. Okay. Hey ho. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. Who are these people? Who is this Ed Opperman? If you like our show, be sure to check out our Patreon, Opperman Report Patreon. A lot of new content up there all the time. A lot of old classic shows too we put up there, and ad-free, commercial-free. Just put up the O.J. Simpson 475 pages of FBI files investigating O.J. Simpson's shoes. Very compelling reading up there. But, you got it from me, right? All kind of great stuff there at Patreon. If you need to get a hold of me as a private investigator, Opperman Investigations at OppermanInvestigations@gmail.com. I'm not feeling so good today, guys. I got to say, I'm having another rough day. So I might not make it through the show. And we might not have a second show because I can't find the second show. I taped two shows yesterday and today, and I can't find the second one. So we'll see what happens. If we can locate it before the end of the first live show and then the end of the first recorded show, which will be Doug Papa, who's that ex-cop in Vegas, that journalist. It's the Doug Papa podcast. And I have him in the first hour. We're going to be talking about October 1st, the October 1st shooting at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas in October 1st of 2017. Can you believe how long ago that was? 2017. So hopefully we'll be talking about that. Now, if you want our archives, all of our shows, you can find them at Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com. And if you listen on Spreaker, if you listen on Apple Plays or iHeart, but if you listen on Spreaker, I get an extra 10% from the income from the ad. So it's a pretty big paycheck for me, at the end of the month. That little extra 10% would be nice. I put a little less water in my gruel. I eat watery gruel 3 meals a day, just like Oliver. I go up to the headmaster and say, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" And he says, "No, you cannot. Back to that studio. Back to your work there, young Opperman." And I go, "Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir." Anyway, it's my Oliver impersonation. You never knew I could do one of those, did you? You guys didn't know that. Nah, you know. But if you go to Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com, you go there and you follow me. It's free. Everything there is free. And there's a chat room. As you get an email notification when I put up new content. I do a live show every Friday night, at least for now, because they're discontinuing the live broadcasting. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't even know if I'll be alive by then, to be honest with you. They're ending it in December of 2024. So January 1st, 2025, they won't have it anymore. But who knows? Who knows if I'll even make it that long the way things are going. And even if I can make it through the show tonight, I don't know. I'm not so sure about that either. But I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can for the audience that I love. So just to give you an idea, I had to get up the crack of dawn today because it's very hot down here in Florida. And I'm helping out these people. I've been telling you the story about these folks in this shipping container. You know, I'm trying to help them get this thing. And I'm going to tell you something. When I went there today, this thing is habitable. Okay, there's running water, there's electricity, there's an AC unit. It's a habitable dwelling at this point. I'm really impressed with how much they've gotten done since we've gotten this damn thing onto the slab. Because if not, that thing would still be sitting. It's been sitting there for like a year, just next to the slab. So thank God we were able to get that done. So you got that long drive down there, and this hot sun and this hot muggy weather. Helping them out with the stuff down there. And I get home, and wouldn't you know it, my water's turned off. Okay. I got no freak. I got to turn my faucet on. Give me a little sip of water. I can't even get a glass of water because my water shut off. Now, I've had my water shut off in the past, you know, when I've had financial troubles. So I'm trying to figure out, hey, what, I didn't pay the water bill? What's going on? Let me check my mail, the emails. Nothing, no notice from the homeowners association. Hey, we're doing a repair in the building. We're going to shut the water off tomorrow at 8 a.m. So I'm covered in sweat. And I got no water. So then I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with my water. And finally I get an email saying, hey, the landscaping company was driving around because they got these stand-up tractor freaking lawnmowers, you know. That, by the way, they took out all my bushes. I used to have beautiful flower bushes in front of my patio over here. They just ran right over, man. They're all gone. I got nothing out there. A little tiny thing sprouts up. They just drive right over as close as they can. And also, too, for some reason, they're out there with these damn lawnmowers. The minute I start taping with a guest, they're out there. Like, as soon as I put the headphones on, I hear the tractors out there. But just a little heads up for you there. You know, if you do get your water shut off, you don't pay your water bill and you get the water shut off. Do you remember those old-fashioned pipe wrenches? They used to call them monkey wrenches. We used to have them, you know, they were very popular years ago. Now they're not that popular, but they still sell them. They're called crescent wrenches or monkey wrenches. Okay. Or even a Stilson wrench. It's not called a crescent wrench. It's called a Stilson wrench. And it's that wrench that it's usually red, and then it has that L-shaped adjustable thing that goes up and down, and then there's like a big nut, like almost like the size of a ring almost, you know. Like when I had my dad's when I was a kid, I would take it apart. I'd put that little nut on my finger like a ring. I'd take it apart all the time. So if you take that apart, if you unscrew that adjustable part of the monkey wrench, that hole there where that adjustable part goes into, that's the tool you use to go out, if you get your water shut off, to go out to the main line there and turn the water back on. That's what you use. Okay. So that's a little guerrilla warfare out there, a little life hack for you if you ever get your water shut off, because they don't know if you turn it back on. There's no signal that goes back to the water company. They're not going to know until the next time you go to your meter and check when it's time to turn it back on. So just before when you pay the bill, you go back and you turn it back off, you know, before the guy gets back. And if you have a dog, you know, you tie the dog to the thing over there. It says, I can't get there. That's why you got to operate in guerrilla warfare in the United States of America today in 2024. It's so funny because when Vic was little, I was talking to her today, and that's a very emotional day. And another freaking We got Father's Day coming up, I just miss my kid so bad. But when she was little, I used to call her Monkey all the time. I always tease her, call her, Vic, we got you at the zoo. We sold this cute little monkey at the zoo. We took it home, we shaved it, and that's you. You're a little monkey. So whenever I give her a banana, I say, see, like bananas, right? Monkeys like bananas. So I got into her head, saying I'm a cruel father. I got into her head so bad that she actually thought, 3-4 years old, that maybe she was a monkey, that she came from the zoo. But the first time I ever told her about a monkey wrench, right, she laughed hysterically. She thought I had to be making it up, that there would be a tool that was called a monkey wrench. Impossible. So now here we are years later telling people how to turn their water back on using a monkey wrench. You call it a... No. Vice grip is different, brother. One of the chatters says talking about a vice grip. Vice grip is... we have vice grips here, too. And we used to call vice grips locking pliers, pressure pliers. In the Bronx, as kids, we'd call them pressure pliers. But they're also called locking grips or locking pliers, vice grips. And when we were kids and we used to ride our bikes around in the Bronx, you'd have to have some tools with you because your bikes would break down all the time. These old crap. It wasn't even a new bike. This was like my older brother's bike. They went down to my older brother and then to me. I think I even had my sister's bike for a while. I did ride my sister's bike for a while. So you'd put those locking vice grips in the front, like underneath your seat. So you'd clamp it on there. So if you were out there in your adventures and you had your car broke down, your bike broke down, you could fix it, which happened all the time. We're constantly breaking down miles away from home, and how we ever made it home, I don't know. Back in those days, how I didn't get kidnapped or killed or hit by a car or what, or killed by the cops. Oh my God, this stuff or on the subways. We used to get on the subways and go to China. I never told that story, but the time we went to Chinatown, me and my friend George, and the cops picked us up because we got into a fight with these other kids and we pulled our switchblades out, knives out, down there in Chinatown. And my father had to come pick us up, and then it was like graduation. 8th grade graduation was the next day, and they didn't give my friend George his diploma. They gave mine, but they didn't give him his. He got in trouble for it, and I didn't. Anyway, it's another story I'll see for you one day. So let's see what's going on here. Yeah, well, the water's on now, man. The water's on now. I was able to take a shower and stuff like that, but still, I'm sick today, man. I ordered some food too, and I'm still very weak and lightheaded and stuff like that. In fact, I even canceled an interview I was supposed to do this afternoon. I thought it was supposed to be at 1:00 Eastern time, but the guest, I thought it was 1:00 Pacific time. So I said, okay, I'll do it at 4. But then when 4 came around, I just couldn't do it. I just had to lie down. Hey. Sucks getting old, folks, man. Don't ever do it. It's better off, die young. When you're healthy. 4 years ago, I was just so strong. I look at pictures of me 4 years ago. I was so strong. My God. So our first show tonight will be Doug Papa, who's this cop from a very interesting guy. We had him on, and he's friends with Frank Serpico too, but I'm unable to. Frank Serpico doesn't want to come on my show. Okay. There's people that don't want to come on. What am I going to tell? There's people that don't want to come on. I was chasing around this one guest all week this week, man. Oh, I'll call you tomorrow at 2:00, and then day goes by and doesn't call. Anyway, so with Doug Papa, the first show with him was about Shane Valentine and these pimps and murderers in Vegas that were pimping out the daughters of judges and cops and detectives and stuff. It's just a wild story. And it culminated in a couple of suicides and huge scandals and crazy, crazy stories. And this Shane Valentine, this guy's an informant, just does whatever he wants. One was shooting into an occupied dwelling, which you get 40 years for doing that, man. And this guy's out in 2 years. So just incredible, the shenanigans that goes on in the criminal justice system. So we talked about that story the first time with Doug Papa. He's an expert on that story. And then we had him come back, and, we were going to talk about October 1st, the shooting at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. But instead, he starts telling a story about how he got fired as a cop in that corruption case, which is an interesting story. And then just offhand, he starts telling this story about how, I'm looking around for work, and these cops I know, they said, hey, do you want to come work for us with this cult awareness network? And, and we're deprogramming people. We kidnap these cult victims, and we deprogram them. And he finds out that these are on-duty cops running around kidnapping people. Just kidnapping people. Whatever. So he goes to work for the FBI to turn them all in and make a case against them. A fascinating story there, too, as well. Good old Doug Papa. So I had him come back to talk about October 1st, the October 1st shooting at Mandalay Bay. And I got to tell you something, man. I didn't expect to be so traumatized reliving that whole story. And it wasn't just the trauma of being there, in your small town, Vegas is a small town. The Las Vegas Strip was only 11 minutes from my house at the time. And the cops had come and they'd shut down 215 highway, which was right, the entrance to 215 was right by our house, like 30 seconds away. And they had shut that down. They shut down the 15. And I had stumbled on that story in the middle of the night when it happened. I turned on my police scanner to hear what was going on. And when you first heard this, it sounded like the whole strip was under attack. Like it was like there was a shooting and a bombing, and a runaway train, on every block, all the way down from South Las Vegas Boulevard, where the M is, all the way up to where Bellagio is, and the Wynn and that kind of stuff. Just according to these reports going over the radio, it was just hysteria. So Doug is a lot more forgiving for the cops that day than I am, even though, we did talk openly about some stuff, some real lacking that went on that day, some real shortcomings in the police response and the fire response, too, that even the fire department didn't want to go in there where these people were all shot up and dying, that the stagehands were going in and pulling them out. So we get into all that stuff, and looking back, 2017, it's not that long ago, but the way the response to that incident on social media and, in internet radio and podcasters and YouTubers was just so irresponsible and so with these wild, crazy theories that came out. And I lost so many really good, solid friendships with people that were just consumed by this incident and contacting me, trying to drag me into their wild fantasies and their wild theories of what they think they saw and what they think had happened. And as the days would go by, and, you're at the store, or you're at you're at a coffee shop you go to all the time, or you're at church, or, you're dropping your kid off at school and you're talking to the other parents, just that daily kind of stuff. You're at the gym, you talk to a guy at the gym, when your natural interaction with different people, and everybody's telling you their experience that night and who they know that was there, and their friend was there, and their friend was a fireman who responded. And everyone knows by now, hey, what really happened. And then you go on the internet and on Facebook or back YouTube, and there's just these wild, crazy theories. And I got to tell you, I lost a lot of friendships with people, just tell them, hey, man, what you guys are saying is crazy, And you would think, here it is years later, where are all those people? Where do they all go? How come none of them have come back to me and say, hey, you're right, I was wrong. Ed, you're so right. I shouldn't have been messaging you like every 5 minutes trying to convince you of something that never happened. But that's just that's just what it is. And now we're at a point now where the disinformation and the hysteria is just it's worse. on every topic, every subject, and now we have this whole thing with the Trump and January 6th and all this. This hysteria. That's what I'm going to be talking about tonight, about Alex Jones and the Alex Jonesification of information dissemination. I'll be talking about that, I guess, when we get to that point. I'll cover a few things first before then. Because, Alex Jones had court today in his bankruptcy court, and I'm watching him trying to explain what happened to him in court. And I can tell you right now, he does not understand what happened to him today in court. He doesn't understand what's going on as far as his litigation goes. And I don't think he's understood throughout. Because the reason why he got these judgments against him is because he never turned over discovery. Like just basic, procedural litigation stuff, So now he's trying to say it's the Democrats are doing it to him. This was a civil lawsuit. It has nothing to do with the Democrats or the Republicans or any party. I don't think he, I think the guy's a little crazy. I've heard stories about him, way back, pulling a knife on a guy, in a fight. Then he lost the fight and he calls the cops, from his days in Austin, local stuff, local radio stuff down there. So I've heard these crazy stories. So who knows, man? I hope we have for you a show I did with Melanie L. Carlson. And she did an article for Covert Action magazine about the octopus and Danny Casolaro. And Dr. Casolaro, Danny Casolaro's father, the doctor. And it turns out, like so much with that story, because, his father was involved in a lot of stuff, okay? And a lot of stuff that it seemed like Danny was looking into as well. And that's a whole nother avenue of research and investigation that needs to be thoroughly looked into. And not by the crew of people that are looking into this thing now, okay? There's just, every day that goes by, I trust these people less and less. Not just the people from the Netflix thing, but the people around them, that are just so giddy about the quality of this Netflix thing. But what are you going to do? That's just the mess we're in today, man, where there's just so much disinformation. And even my interview with Melanie L. Carlson, I was just so cynical. We had such a conversation. We had like a 20-minute conversation before the show. Because she's really, fascinated with the show and the previous guests and the topics I've had on. And one of her things, too, is Britney Spears. She's really into she's done a lot of research and investigation into the Britney Spears conservatorship and people that made money off of that conservatorship. So I think we'll be having her come back. I'm pretty sure we will, by some different topics there. And I got to tell you something else. I have gotten so much response about the Joe Exotic interview. If you haven't heard this interview, it's up in the archives. It's up on Patreon. It's up on Spreaker. Joe Exotic. I didn't even put Tiger King in there. Just Joe Exotic tells all, or whatever it is, the title. I'm really lazy about putting the tags and the titles and stuff in there and all. I could do so much more search engine optimization, but at this point, it's fruitless, man. Because Google has me shadow banned. They're not going to promote anything I do. It's only by word of mouth that really comes out. But I have gotten so much response of people telling me, Ed, I can't believe that interview with Joe Exotic. It comes off so sincere. And no one knows that he did not cooperate with Netflix. That's all archival footage that they got from his ex-husband. He didn't. That whole first season, he didn't do any cooperation with Netflix at all. He did some in the second season through his lawyer, but nothing really himself. And maybe there's some stuff from jail, from prison, some footage from there. I don't know if they got that for free or not. But he was totally smeared by Netflix, just like, Bill Hamilton was smeared by Netflix, just like Maury Terry was smeared by Netflix. And now we're hearing, too, through this Melanie Carlson, that the Britney Spears stuff on Netflix was a smear, too. And I like her work, this woman. Of course, there's going to be things we disagree on. and stuff I'm aware of. That the average person's not, that you're not going to find. Googling. Stuff you got to live this life to know these things. So hopefully we'll get that tonight. I'll be able to play that for you tonight. Otherwise, I only have one show for you, the Doug Papa Show, because I cannot locate the other show there. Where is that show? Why can't I locate that show? Patrick Berge, I'm taping with him tomorrow. He's working on some new platform, for content creators. It sounds really where you'll have your own control over it. It sounds like it could really take off. Could be like the next Facebook or something, the next Twitter. He's a really smart guy. He's testified before the January 6th committee. He's been on the show twice before. He knows all these guys, Patrick Byrne and Sidney Powell. He was in with all of them. He had Hunter Biden's laptop in his hands in Rudy Giuliani's apartment in New York City there. This guy's, he's a real insider. He knows all this stuff. He tells this really funny story about being at one of the January 6th war room meetings. And Michael Flynn's son comes in with these two Filipino lady boys, as he calls them, that were his escorts for the evening, Just one crazy, thing after another. So who knows what we're going to come out with him tomorrow when I interview good old Patrick Berge, but we have him coming back too as well. I got to get Lev Parnas back too, man. I blew him off. I'm really ashamed of myself the way I handled that. I was sick. I couldn't tape the interview. I was too sick. I couldn't do it. And then they just haven't gotten back to him. But he's got so much information, man, and he the way Twitter is these days, I don't. That Twitter algorithms, I don't see any of those, my normal people that I see anymore, that I used to be able to chat back. All I get is these right-wing crazy people on there, and there's all that comes up. And even after I mute a bunch of them and I block them, that still just new crazy right-wing stuff comes up. It's all that comes up on my feed on Twitter anymore. Just people I disagree with. Nobody I agree with, or no one that agrees with me, that's for sure. Oh, by the way, we were talking to Doug Papa about the night in October 1st. Because like I said, I was listening to the Scanners that night, and as soon as I heard, I figured it was an address or a name that was on a Players Club card, I looked up that name right away, and I got the address and I got the Stephen Paddock's name right away. I had one of the first people to have it that night. And as soon as I Googled it, the only thing that came up was some other people that, like myself, that were doing their own investigations and digging up the name. So I knew right away I had the right name. But they were somehow on the news immediately that night. They were talking about bump stocks. That the weapons he was using to fire into that crowd were bump stocks. And how that works is, because they just did a Supreme Court ruling on this today, saying that they're not fully automatic. They're not going to be under the fully automatic rifle laws, the machine gun laws, and they came out in the 30s for Al Capone. Okay, those guys, That's why we outlawed machine guns in this country, because of people like Al Capone, and the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and Bonnie and Clyde, shooting the joint up with machine guns. He said, well, it's a bad thing. We don't want to have this anymore. But I told a story about how earlier, about a year ago, I guess it was about 9 months ago, I had to go up to Georgia for a job interview with this attorney, and he took us out to his hunting lodge, hunting property. He got all, people are so freaking rich that they buy a whole chunk of woods, man, so they can shoot up the deer, on their own private property. Oh my God! But he had this really cool cabin. This guy had like hundreds of rifles, man, and shotguns and handguns all over the place, man. And so, and we fired these bump stocks. And I got to tell you, I hate to discuss any kind of firearms at all, man, on the radio, because then every expert out there in the world, bump stocks aren't for hunting. You know that. You can't talk about guns anymore because all these weirdos with these gun fetishes. But so the Supreme Court just ruled that they're not fully automatic. They're not machine guns, and they're not covered under that machine gun law. And how the bump stock works is because it's not fully auto. When you pull the trigger, the action of the ignition of the charge in the bullet is what causes like the bump has like a spring in it, so that when you're holding the gun, the action of the recoil of the gun is what causes it to keep firing the next bullet. So even though you're only holding the trigger, you're holding the trigger down, and it's the stock has a spring in it that causes that uses that the ignition of the bullet to cause it to keep firing. It's hard to explain, but the thing is, and it's fun to shoot. You know, it takes a few minutes to get the hang of it. And I fired fully automatic weapons. I had back in the 80s. I had a bunch of fully automatic weapons illegally. You know, that we had, Mac 11 I had, that we would take out to the desert in Arizona and shoot those things off for hours, man. We would go deaf. We would be out there at 110 degrees, drinking like cases of beer, just firing off rounds, you know, for hours, like lunatics. My God, how we didn't kill ourselves up there, it's just, I don't know, man. Because, you know, it was so remote, too, by the way, with this trailer we had out there where we would pack up the weed out in Vail, Arizona. Now it's more developed, but back in those days, man, you know, you were out in the middle of nowhere, you know, and we'd just be firing off rounds for hours and hours and hours. And, you know, the neighbors would be saying, well, how do you afford all that ammunition? Oh, well, I don't know. Yeah, man, that's a really good job. He's from New York. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. You know? Oh, God. So I'm used to firing automatic weapons, but firing this bump stock, it's very inaccurate. There's no reason to have to use a bump stock to make your weapon fully auto, or to fire as if fully auto, because it decreases the accuracy so much. So unless you're firing into a crowd, you know, like that guy was doing, you know, from the window in the Mandalay Bay there, you know, there's really no reason. There's no other use except fun, you know, to shoot a fully automatic, you know. But even that gets boring after a while. So anyway, that's another little bump stock thing came up there. You know, there was a guilty plea this week up in Washington State. This crazy story. And I happened to get a hold of the probable cause affidavit that they used to arrest this father who had a sleepover with his daughter and 3 little girls. Right? This father and his daughter has a sleepover with 3 little girls, and they're 12 years old. And so what he does is he has like a spa day for these kids. And he took them to get their nails done at a salon. But then they were doing at their house, they were doing the masks and, you know, those, facials and things, you know, like the little spa day sleepover. And at the end of the night, he comes and he gives them these smoothies. He makes these smoothies for them with different colored straws. And he tells each of them, listen, each one of you, you have to drink your whole smoothie. You have to finish it off. And don't drink anybody else's smoothie. Use your own straw, your own glass. Don't touch anybody else's glass. And he had put diazepam in there, like Valium or Xanax in there. He crunched it up. And even the kids drinking it saw the little crunched up pills. And they're drinking it. Oh, boy, these things taste funny. These little crunchy things in here taste funny, you know, as they're drinking this. And one kid didn't drink her smoothie. So she was awake, and she saw he kept coming into the room to check on him into the basement, putting his hand in front of their noses to see if they were asleep, and waving the hand in front of their face to see if they were awake. And she pretended she was asleep. And finally, she frantically texts her mother saying, please, you got to get me out of here. Get me out of here right now. I'm scared. I'm afraid. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. Finally, her parents show up to pick her up. And then when they see the father, he's drunk. And so then they tell the other parents come pick him up. And he's trying to talk him out of it. Let him sleep. Bring him up tomorrow. Okay, you got to read this probable cause affidavit. It's intense. But the thing that jumped off the page at me, and you got to remember, you know, I know I had a daughter. You know, so we've had 100 sleepovers at our house, and she said I'd sleep over at 100 kids' houses. You know, and you always kind of, you know, we're a little worried, okay? But with Vic, man, Like, she would never, if someone came to her and said, hey, you have to drink this whole smoothie here and this is your straw, she would say, what? I'm not drinking that. What are you talking about? And as soon as she saw this thing, she said, what, there's pills in here. She wouldn't, 12 years old, 10 years old, 9 years old, okay, she wouldn't fall for that. So, you got to kind of read between the lines. And one of the things it talks about in this probable cause affidavit is that these little girls, part of their day was in the jacuzzi and playing in the sprinklers outside. Now, kids playing in the sprinklers, okay, that's not a 12-year-old kid. That's not a 13-year-old kid who plays in the sprinklers. The kids who play in the sprinklers, that's the maturity of 9, 10 years old, okay? So this guy either had to know that these kids had the maturity of 9, 10 years old. These were little kids, These weren't like, teenagers and, he's a little creepy. But, this is little kids, playing in the sprinklers. So either he, sought out this thing or, sought out kids of that maturity to know that it was easier to take advantage of them, But just imagine, okay, innocent little children who are playing in the sprinklers, and this is who this guy targets. Now, there's no evidence in this case he pled guilty to giving them an intoxicating beverage without their consent and without their knowledge, which is you'd think would have a more serious charge. I think at one point he had 13 charges against him, but he only pled guilty to these 3. And he's only getting 2 years in prison. 2 years for drugging a bunch of 12-year-old girls. For whatever, they never spell out what his motivation was. He said his motivation was he wanted them to go to sleep because they had activities they were going to do the next day. And he actually says he was afraid that they were going to sneak out after he went to sleep. Kids that play in the sprinklers aren't sneaking out at night. Okay, that's a whole different group of kids. Okay, because there are 12-year-olds, who would sneak out at night and, sneak into the liquor cabinet and, smoke pot, smoke cigarettes, sneak out and go see boys and stuff like that. But a kid who's playing in the sprinklers is not going to also be sneaking out at night. And a kid who's texting their mom, hey, come get me, I'm worried over here, is not the kind of kid who's sneaking out at night. Okay, it's a different kind of kids. I'm a parent, I know. I've had sleepovers in my house, and I never had to worry, by the way, of my daughter's friends ever sneaking out, okay, or anything like that. These kids my daughter's friends were such nerds. Okay. That they would have a sleepover and they'd be in there doing their homework, working on school projects. Vic went to a sleepover one time and she brought a CD of the sermon at church because she was concerned that her friends were being mean girls to other kids at school. Okay, and this is like, 12 years old, 13 years old, man. That's, oh my God. I raised the biggest nerd in the world. I did, but she turned out great. God bless this kid, man. She just turned out so good. I wish I could tell you her successes in her life, man, but we got to be so careful, what we talk about anymore. Let's see here. You know what? The motivation, you're right. It is obvious that this guy had perverted thoughts in his head over what had to be incredibly immature, innocent kids, but we know, but how do you prove that in court? You know what I mean? That's obviously, we assume that was, what else could the motivation be? It certainly wasn't that he wanted him to be in bed early and not sneak out at night. Clearly, that's not it, with the story he came up with. And by the way, too, you're facing serious jail time and you can't come up with a better story than that. I don't know. Because the whole thing is crazy, man. I don't. You think there has to be a new law that says, hey, if you're drugging little kids under the age of 12, that some more serious charges. That maybe 10 years. You don't get 10 years of that. It seems reasonable to me. Oh God, but it's a crazy story. So he's only getting 2 years and then 3 years probation. Okay, and then after that, he can go back to doing whatever he wants. There's going to be nobody watching this guy, no supervision whatsoever with this guy. His wife of 16 years divorced him less than a month after this incident here, where just imagine too, the poor girl who was his daughter. Now she has to go back to school. Hey, your dad drugged our friends. And what's going on? Your dad's a creep. Your dad's a pervert. Oh my God, yeah. The torment of this kid, being torn between loving her dad and knowing her dad did this crazy stuff. And then too, it turns out that one of these little girls, only weighed 70 pounds. And he's drugging her with these Valium and these Xanax, and the dosages that were in their urine. Because one of the kids said, she went to go stand up and she fell over. This kid, it's not like you or I take a Xanax and hey, a little glass of wine with my Xanax here. You know what I mean? This is a kid who's never had Xanax before, and now you're giving them a Xanax. Some kids have never had Benadryl before. You can't even give them that. They've never even had that. I remember the first time I gave my daughter a Benadryl or a cough syrup, when she was a little kid, she was wasted. And Disney was on TV, and she was doing this thing with her hands, like zoom, zoom. She was wasted on a little bit of Benadryl, which was like the dosage on the bottle, that it says to give them. Oh, God. So anyway, man, that's just the thing that stuck out to me is what their activity, was playing in the sprinklers. This is who this guy goes after, kids playing in the sprinklers. God, zooks. Let's see here. Well, I got to tell you, man, Alex Jones, I'm watching this guy, this meltdown that's been going on for the past week, where he's on there crying about he's going to lose his studio. They're going to come in and take over the studio. And now he's going on over and over and over again, talking about how it's the Democrats and the deep state and the CIA and the FBI that are after him. Now, where he's gotten himself into today is he didn't properly respond to a civil lawsuit. He could have fought this lawsuit. Okay, maybe if he's saying that he didn't slander the Sandy Hook parents and he didn't raise money off the Sandy Hook parents by spreading disinformation with that crazy, who's that guy? I had him on my show, guy was nuts, Fetzer, yeah, James Fetzer. The guy's a total anti-Semite too. The guy's not anti-Zionist, okay? This guy's he's a Jew hater, okay? And that's finally why I dumped him, man, and I blocked him in private email. Because this other guy who was sending me all this anti-Zionist stuff all the time, which fine, you can be an anti-Zionist. I most of my life I was anti-Zionist. And now I don't know what I can call myself. It's a criminal state at this point. I don't know how anybody can endorse this. But there was this other fellow who was constantly with the anti-Zionists. And most of these people, too, if you ask them what a Zionist is, they don't even understand what a Zionist is. They just know that they hate Jews. But this other guy was always anti-Zionist, this is Zionist, that. And then finally one day he posts this thing. He sends me an email about basically that Jews are evil. It looks like we might be able to get that show, that Melanie Carlson show up by tonight too, so I'll have two shows for you. But this guy sends me a thing saying, well, Jews are evil. And I says, dude, you know what, man? Take me off your list. Stop sending me emails. And Fetzer goes in and doubles down. Oh, no, Ed. Look, Jews are evil. Let me show you all this proof that Jews are evil. So that's who this Alex Jones was relying on for this Sandy Hook stuff, man. The guys that are just basically bigots and anti-Semites. So Jones loses this big lawsuit, and this huge ruling against him, and he has to start going into bankruptcies. So that's where he is now. This is not run by the Democrats. It's a civil lawsuit. The Democrats had nothing to do with that. He's saying that the Democrats are doing this to him. He's posting now hysterically stuff about COVID and they just had a ruling today in his bankruptcy litigation that clearly he does not understand what's going on in his own court case, okay? Because he had a better bankruptcy option where they were going to liquidate all his assets and he didn't have to pay any debts, okay? He was going to get the hook off of all the debts and liquidate his assets, and now it's more control. I don't know. He thinks he has a victory today, but it's not. I'm doing a poor job of explaining this, but I'm not feeling good, man. But one of the things he comes up with today is he posts this thing about they had to kill a bunch of chickens, because they worried about this bird flu. And he goes, this is all an Agenda 2030, that they want to disrupt the food chain and disrupt the food supply. Now, and I've been freaking out for years over Agenda 21. And, Agenda 30 is the next plan after Agenda 21. And everyone who hears, you always hear the story about how there's chemtrails and, the poisonous food supply, and they want to, they can't make up their minds. Either they want to put everybody in cities and stack them up in cities, or they want to put everybody out in the forest, and they want to do away with cities. But either way, it's all there. Just read Agenda 21. It's right in there. And Jones was saying today on Twitter that this plan to kill off the food supply is all in Agenda 2030. It's right in there. And, me, like a fool, I've actually read Agenda 21 and I've actually read Agenda 30. And the thing is, it's all BS, okay? There's nothing... They don't come out there and like they tell you and openly tell you about depopulation. And let me read to you about what it says in paragraph 7 on the first page of a 2030, our vision. In these goals and targets, we are setting out a supremely ambitious and transformational vision. We envisage a world free of poverty, hunger, disease, and want, where all life can thrive. We envisage a world free of fear and violence. Alex Jones would be out of a job. Okay, a world with universal literacy, a world with equitable and universal access to quality education at all levels, to health care and social protection, where physical, mental, and social well-being are assured. This is evil stuff. Okay, a world where we reaffirm our commitments regarding the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation, and where there is improved hygiene and where food is sufficient. So Jones is telling you that it says in Agenda 2030 that they want to take away your food, but here it says in black and white, where food is sufficient, safe, affordable, and nutritious. A world where human habitats are safe, resilient, and sustainable, and where is universal access to affordable, reliable, sustainable energy. Now, clearly, there is no, maybe a couple of the guys, who work over at Agenda 2030, okay, really want this for us, okay? They say they have high hopes. Hey, man, you know what? We can do this. Kumbaya. Let's get together. We'll share and, be nice to each other and have free education, and educate and free food and safe food to eat. Wouldn't this be great? Maybe there's a couple of people who really believe that, but let's face it. The world is run by capitalists. They're run by people that want to take money from your pocket and put it into their pockets. And they don't care how they enslave us and how they starve us and how they put us and stack us up in jails and prisons if they can make money off of it. That's how things really run. Okay? So they're really not trying to do any of this stuff. Okay, maybe there's a couple of guys who work over there who really think, and they take LSD and mushrooms, and they think they're going to do all this. They sit around smoking pot. They think they're going to. When are we going to do this? Without like a revolution. We put all these guillotines and put these people in prison. But one thing I can tell you as clear as that there is a last bit of blood flowing through my veins, that none of these things that they tell you is in Agenda 21 or in Agenda 2030. These secret plots to take away your land and take away your food and to poison you, and the transhumanism and transgender and sterilize people, and all these things they tell you is in there, and all you got to do is read it and you'll see it. Anybody who's saying that to you, just read it and you'll see it in there. Either hasn't read it, they saw some video, some YouTube about it, some Glenn Beck bullshit about it, or they know it's not in there and they're just lying to you and they think you're stupid and you're not going to read it for yourself. So that's just black and white. So Alex Jones, by now someone on his staff must have read the damn thing, right? He knows these things are not in there. And he knows it's a scary boogeyman that people can trick you with and lie to you about, that everybody thinks is real. Even some of the people right now, when I tell them, hey, read it for yourself, none of this bad, scary stuff is in there, are triggered and saying, oh, Ed must be, but Ed, we can't trust Ed anymore. Because look, everyone knows Agenda 2030 and Agenda 21 is the evil plot of chemtrails to take away our freedoms and make us drive around in traffic circles. This crazy stuff that they think is in there, and chemtrails, and stacking up people in cities. All these things that they think is in there is not in there. I've read it. I know it's not in there. Anybody can go and you can use the find word feature. Go in there and look for chemtrails. Look for earthquakes. Look for directed energy weaponry that they all tell you is in there. It's not in there. This is as simple as it can get. It's fear-mongering to trick you and to scare you, and something that you could read for yourself and see is not there. What more do you want after that? Is there any question that Alex Jones is a fear-monger, liar, with crazy things, the sterilization of children, all this crazy stuff he's talking about? Which brings to a whole nother thing, this obsession with transgenders. Okay? First of all, it's 0.07% of the country identifies as some level of trans. And not every trans is on hormone blockers and testosterone and steroids and estrogen. Not all of them are even reach that point. Okay? Men are just in their head believe that they're trans. Okay, they're the wrong gender. Okay, now just imagine if this were you. Okay, and you're feeling in your mind and your body that I believe I'm an opposite gender than what I was born with. I think I'm this other thing. And that's not an easy conclusion to come to. Maybe they're confused. Maybe there's a biological thing. Maybe that they really are. Okay? There's many possibilities there. But just imagine what a huge issue that would be to deal with in your life. Okay? The last thing you need is this kind of wild, crazy scrutiny and obsession, and constant memes and people, misgendering you and making jokes about it and Why make that situation more difficult for that person when there's so few of them? Now, this whole idea that now the whole thing becomes, transgenders playing in sports and going into the women's room, men going into the women's room because they identify as a woman with my daughter. And they're going to be in. And if I see this, I'm going to shoot them. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to use my AR-15 with the bump stock and the 20 grains. Hollow points. Okay? Right? Now we're off and freaking, we got to take an AR-15 into the ladies' room because there could be a man in there who's transgender who wants to rape my daughter. That's all in Agenda 2030, by the way. If you read Agenda 21, that's all in there. All the bathrooms are in there. Right? Just think, how many times in the past year have you yourself used a public restroom? Maybe 12. Maybe 15. Let's say, you go out a lot, you go out to a lot of bars and restaurants and clubs and stuff like that. Maybe 25 times you've been to the bathroom, in a public bathroom, right? Right. And except, if it's an event, like a crowded bar or a nightclub or something like that, how many times have you been to a public bathroom, like at Target or something like that, where there's somebody else in the bathroom? When you went in there, you ran into another person in the bathroom. Okay, that wasn't like a crowded club, a crowded nightclub, right? Maybe twice in the past year, I've run into another person in a public bathroom. Has that person ever been trans? Never that I've run across, in recent years. Okay, never, not once. Now, and let's say it was in a crowded bathroom. No one's going to be committing sex crimes in a crowded bathroom. A whole bunch of crowded people in there in a line around the bathroom. When you're in a bathroom where there's a crowd of people there. This is like the most non-issue that there could possibly be on the planet. If there's a list of things to be worried about, you're worried about this 0.7% that you might run into in a public bathroom? Or when's the last time you let your kid go into the bathroom by themselves, where there's a trans guy running around? This is the craziest thing. When's the last time you went to a public bathroom and you saw an unaccompanied kid in there? Maybe at Disneyland. You see a kid in the public bathroom, okay? But there's 100 other people in there too, Like, when is the last time you went to a public restroom and you ran into an unaccompanied kid in a public bathroom? You got more danger you telling your kid to a sleepover with some straight guy. Okay? This is just the craziest thing. We're arguing about the craziest things. We're worried about the craziest imaginary problems that are going to come into our life. Oh, look at this. We're out of time. What a note to end off on. Public bathrooms. And by the way, that was totally not on my notes at all. None of that stuff. Let me see if there's anything left in my notes that I haven't gotten to that's important that I need to get to you. Yeah, I had some good stuff here, man. I had some good stuff here because this guy was a guy I was supposed to interview. I've had him on several times before, and he goes, Ed, after I did your show, all these people start contacting me to do these interviews with me. And, I do that little, they were doing the same pre-interview that you did with me. And that's a very unusual pre-interview where we go through that little checklist, and they did the exact same thing. Do you know this guy? And I go, yeah, I know. What a jerk that guy is. And he goes, and you want to know something else? After the interview, I noticed during the interview that he was asking me the exact same questions that you asked me in our first interview like 10 years ago. It was the same questions in the same order. It was almost like the same little jokes. He was using the same little joke. He says, dude, you have no idea. But anyway, I don't want to get into that today. We're out of time. I just heard from the great Ed Parnell, who tells me I think he's going to be able to get that show ready for us tonight with Melanie Carlson. But coming up next is Doug Papa. God, I feel like crap. And we're going to be talking about October 1st. All right. Good night, my friends. I'll see you next week. Hopefully I'll be feeling better,
A quererte desde la histórica altura donde el sol de tu bravura le puso cerco a la muerte.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Tu mano gloriosa y fuerte sobre la historia dispara cuando todo Santa Clara se despierta
entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Vienes quemando la brisa con soles de primavera para plantar la bandera con la luz de tu sonrisa.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Tu amor revolucionario te conduce a nueva empresa donde esperan la firmeza de tu brazo libertario.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Seguiremos adelante, como junto a ti seguimos, y con Fidel te decimos, hasta siempre, comandante.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.